Good evening, listeners. Welcome to the Global News Channel. Today, we are in conversation with a Turkish representative who has agreed to give us insights into the role of Turkey in Syria. A lot of changes have happened in the past few months in Syria, and most of these changes owe their creation to the events that occurred in December 2016. It was in December that the German Chancellor Merkel visited Ankara to meet President Erdogan. And it is from then that we see a shift in Turkey's attitudes towards Syria and the growing involvement. The talks seem to have ended in Turkey keeping its end of the agreement intact by preventing refugees' influxes into Western Europe in exchange for their recognition as a full member of the European Union. Does this mean that the nation is finally going to become a full member of the European Union? Please give us your insights. First of all, thank you for calling me for this interview. The role of our country in managing the Syrian crisis, both in terms of accepting more and more refugees as well as fighting against terrorists on our borders, is something that the world must not ignore. We have accommodated 2.75 million Syrian refugees, which is double the amount of refugees who had taken shelter in our nation 3 years ago. Our hospitality is at the cost of the living standards of our own citizens. Our jobs, our homes, and our resources are being shared with Syrian refugees because we believe in the humanitarian cause. We hold the largest community of Syrians in the world today, and this is giving their culture, language, and history an opportunity to survive in the world. We are trying to share our own rights with them, as it is a fundamental duty as a democratic nation to maintain equality on our lands. In the society of democratic states, the recognition of these efforts is very important. It won't be long before it becomes impossible for us to let more refugees into our country. We will not be able to prevent them from entering Europe without European support in both financial and economic terms. Chancellor Merkel, in this regard, has shown us her interest in advancing talks in the European Union for the accession of our nation, and we are hopeful for a positive response from all the other European nations as well. It is in such times that all democratic states, like ours, need to stand together and unite to fight against our common enemy. At Raqqa, Turkish forces proved to be very efficient in fighting the ISIS occupation, but a blind eye was shown towards the Kurdish casualties. Shouldn't Turkey, as a democratic nation, make allies with the Kurds and work in unison with them against the terrorists? Cultures in our neighbors' lands have always been overlapping. Even though we are separate nations, as descendants of the same ancestors, we are all brothers and sisters. We share cultures and histories together. Kurds are also a part of our citizenry. They comprise more than 15% of the population of Turkey. If one were to challenge the peaceful lives of any of our citizens, it becomes a moral duty to protect them from these disturbances. All terrorists who have been trying to disrupt the lives of our citizens need to be tackled with, as they pose a security threat to our nation. We have thus been sending our military in the Syrian battleground to fight all those whom we consider terrorists and are a threat to our democratic civilization. Our actions will prove beneficial not only to the Turkish nation but to the entire democratic world who want to fight the terrorists. It is a matter of national pride that we have been successful in the protection of our men, women, and children. All the nations that support our democratic ideologies will always be considered allies. Where our hearts and minds unite, our actions will too. In December 2016, the explosion in the Yalta railway station was done by ISIS, no doubt, but it was through the Black Sea from Turkey that they reached Crimea. ISIS even posted a picture online as proof of Turkish friendship with them. Do you expect this alliance of Turkey with ISIS to aggravate hostile relations with Russia? Our nation has never supported terrorists, and doing so would only mean rendering our entire purpose as a free country useless. We are never going to form friendship with an organization that believes in using violence against civilians, curbing their freedoms, and spreading a reign of terror all over the world. We are also never going to form alliances with an organization that is illegitimate and uses half-truths to prove a lie. ISIS cannot be trusted with the kind of evidence it produces, and that can be reflected in the Russian reaction to the announcement. The Russians approached Turkey in a very friendly manner and proves our credibility as a more trustworthy source than ISIS. If any nation would be able to accept a narrative from a terrorist organization rather than the truth, they would only become pawns in the terrorist strategy. What could have brought these two nations, Russia and Turkey, to the war zone was actually a very strong unifying turn of events. Russia realized, and rightly so, that in time of crisis, democratic nations must stick together and fight against our common enemy. The closeness between Russia and Turkey seems like a shift in Turkey's loyalties from the US to Russia. Has the country changed its foreign policy in favor of Moscow? We believe in maintaining a transparent approach in Syria. Our actions have always been in support of democracy and against terrorism. Any action besides that is condemned by our people. The engagement of US, however, with certain terrorist groups to tackle another terrorist group is one such action that we condemn. Our people ask us, why are we allowing the US to use our Incirlik air base when they are not giving us aerial support to fight against terrorism, but instead helping the terrorist organizations who are our enemies themselves? Our ideological alignments therefore come at a crossroads here and change directions. We were hoping that the President-elect Donald Trump would be more supportive of our stand as he's against all terrorist occupations. But it seems like the US stand has changed its morality. They are not supporting the righteous actors as much as they should. It is therefore not our relationship with Russia that is weakening ties with the US, but the US negligence towards us. We want to maintain friendly relations with all the democratic nations who can unite with us in our fight against terrorism. The US must respect that. It couldn't be agreed upon more that it is in time of crisis that we all need to stick together and fight our common enemy. Turkey definitely has proved itself to be a legitimate fighter against terrorism and wishes to unite the entire world for the same cause. We thank the representative for sharing the views of Turkey on the recent developments in alliances on the Syrian grounds and our audiences for engaging in this conversation. Keep listening to GNC for more exclusive interviews. Thank you.